Great. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. I'm very happy to see you all here today. I see some new faces and new names today. We have a nice small group, which will be great for the conversation. If at any point during this presentation you have questions, please just type your comments, thoughts, ideas, questions in the chat, and we'll be looking at them throughout. So my name is Sarah Levin. I'm the Executive Director of Jimena, and I have the privilege of introducing today's program. My introduction is going to be longer than normal, so bear with me. And for those of you who were here with us yesterday, you're going to hear the same thing again, but I'm really giving this introduction for all of the people who will be watching this video and yesterday's talk later. So already the talk from yesterday with Dr. Alana Reebok-Ram that focused on school culture is available on our Vimeo page. Maybe someone can put the Vimeo page in the chat box. This talk will also be on our Vimeo page and will exist in perpetuity there. So feel free to share this talk if you find it helpful with your colleagues later on. Jimena's mission is to achieve universal recognition for the heritage, the history, and the rights of Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews. Most people are not really aware that Jimena was created right after September 11th to bear witness to the personal stories of the 1 million Jewish refugees from the Middle East and North Africa. We started as a storytelling organization. Our organization began as a speakers bureau of former Jewish refugees who traveled to college campuses and schools throughout the country to share their personal testimonies. At the time, we really had no other choice. This was the only way that we could begin as an organization because scholars, authors, and activists and artists, I think, were really not talking about the 1 million Jewish refugees from the Middle East and North Africa. And our co-founders understood that any activism and any educational initiative that excludes Mizrahi and Sephardic history, particularly for Jimena, the history of the 1 million Jewish refugees, is incomplete, and that we can't properly teach our Jewish students, our children, or the larger community, including adults, about the Middle East and about the Jewish people if we are excluding Mizrahi and Sephardic history and heritage, both contemporary history and ancient history. So fast forward 20 years, because September 11th was a long time ago, although sometimes these days it feels like it wasn't that far off. Some of the realities that we're coping with now were not so different from what we were coping from then. And since those days, we have grown as an institution in a multitude of dimensions and capacities. And at this point, we're very proud and privileged and honored to be a national organization that is on the forefront of educating and advocating on behalf of the 1 million Jewish refugees from the Middle East and their Mizrahi and Sephardic descendants. In 2019, with the support of the San Francisco Jewish Community Federation, we piloted our Journey to the Mizrach curriculum, which is basically a simple 12-part curriculum of lesson plans and resources. We piloted it here in the Bay Area with all of the local Jewish day schools. And now it's been utilized and accessed by over 800 educators around the world. Since the launch of this curriculum, we have received ongoing requests for more content, for more support, and for more guidance, not just related to content, but also meaningfully to school culture. So we all know, and I'm assuming everyone on this call knows because you're here today, that there really is a void and there's a vacuum and there's not enough content and there are not enough recommendations and support services available for formal and informal Jewish educators and public school teachers who want to teach on subjects related to Sephardi, Mizrahi, Middle Eastern history. So the pilot of the Journey to the Mizrach curriculum was a success, but as I said, it's a simple 12-part lesson plan, or it's a simple curriculum composed of 12 lesson plans. It doesn't include any content or recommendations related to school culture. So we were lucky to receive a signature grant from the Covenant Foundation to develop a compendium of recommendations, strategies, and resources to help educators learn about Sephardi Mizrahi heritage and to shape and build more inclusive school environments. So I want to say that this guide may be the first of its kind, but it's by no means an end all be all, because every school, as we know, and every teacher and every class, every administrator has different needs. And literally every single sentence and every single part of the curriculum guide can be unfolded and turned into trainings and classes and even degrees of their own. And our hope is eventually that Jimena will be able to work with and have some influence on Jewish higher educational institutions so that they have the resources and the support that they need to do a better job in instructing and preparing future Jewish educators about subjects related to Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews. So yesterday we focused on the school culture piece. Today is really the nuts and bolts, which I think for most of the people on the call is the most interesting, especially for Sephardi Mizrahi educators. So we're gonna take a dive into the toolkit with Ty Al-Hadef, who's Jimena's education director, and he wrote the section on content recommendations. He would agree. We've said yesterday that this toolkit is a very fluid document. It's not complete. And our hope is that it's only like a quarter of the way complete or even less than that. We want everyone who's involved in Sephardi education, who has experience educating on Sephardi subject matter, who has content to add and contributions and feedback to please share with us. We want this to be kind of like an open source communal toolkit that all of us, especially our Sephardi rabbis and teachers and educators, can add to through for years to come. This is all of ours, and we're proud of everyone who contributed and continues to contribute. So Ty, who's with us here today, I'm sure many of you know him. Ty graduated from the University of Washington with a BA in political science and earned an MA from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem on Jewish civilization. At Jimena, we call him our in-house scholar because he kind of is a walking book. Upon returning to Seattle from Jerusalem, he worked for many years with the University of Washington, where he really did help conceptualize, develop, and build and launch their Sephardic Studies digital collection. So when we finally had the privilege of meeting Ty, it was a no-brainer for us that Ty would be the perfect person to come in to Jimena and build our educational arm. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Ty again. Please, raise your hand or just put in any of your thoughts at any moment into the chat. Thank you all again for being here today. I know everyone is busy, so we appreciate you coming.
Thanks, Sarah. And a lot of what you already discussed, it looks like I'm having in the conversations in the chat room of we have an entire page dedicated to halakha, minhagim, tefillah. Like, how much can we include in that? And any support or recommendations or resources that we can add to our pages, we absolutely encourage them. So just a little bit of a background. Again, I want to reiterate everything that Sarah said. We really appreciate you joining us today. This is the second session of our tour through the Sephardi and Mizrahi Education Toolkit. Again, my name is Tal Hadif. I'm the Director of Education at Jimena, which stands for Jews Indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa. My main goal is that I hope everybody's going to find the toolkit a valuable resource for incorporating Sephardi and Mizrahi studies into a variety of classes, including Tanakh, Halakha, arts and music, literature, STEM fields, Jewish history, Israel education, and Holocaust studies. As Sarah mentioned, Jimen is a West Coast-based organization. I'm here in Seattle. I'm a fourth generation Seattleite. And in around 2001, I taught my first class on the history of Jews in the Islamic world for 7th and 8th graders at one of Seattle's first synagogues, Temple de Hirsch Sinai. And over the last, I don't know, a few years, I've taught at the Northwest Yeshiva High School in Mercer Island, teaching world history and Judaic studies. And I also worked at the Sephardic Studies Department at the University of Washington. My family came to Seattle from Rhodes, from the Ottoman Empire at the turn of the 20th century. They all had a family from the island of Rhodes and established one of the two Sephardic synagogues still in existence here, which I'm proud to say my family and especially my kids are still very active and now 110 years later. I began working at Jimena 2 years ago, and since then we've been trying to expand our organization's educational opportunities across the country. We have a lot of different programs. Our fellowship for Jewish leaders is taking place right now in Los Angeles. We are producing a quarterly journal called Distinctions, which is available online and also in print. And now I'm pleased to introduce our new Sephardi and Mizrahi education toolkit. Um, let's see. So, some background, again, more background information. We started by reaching out to Sephardi and Mizrahi educators, rabbis, activists, grassroots leaders, as well as artists to form select committees from our for our Sephardic Leadership Institute. And we really relied on their guidance to address some of the most important topics impacting our communities today. And I'm grateful to have a few of the members of our committees from our rabbinic committee, Rabbi Akoka, and from our arts and cultures committee, Sarah Aroestes. So thank you both for joining us today. So we've been reaching out to people in Sephardic and Mizrahi communities to look for guidance, and we put together committees for, again, our women's leadership committee, arts and culture committee, rabbinic leadership. We're still working on our university scholarship committee, but we've been really grateful to everybody that's contributed their thoughts and voices to our work. The one thing that everybody seemed to agree on was that there was a serious need to create more inclusive schools with a wider ranging understanding of Jewish history and Judaism. Out of all the responses we got, I like to point out Rabbi Mark Angel's quote where he says, "Overall, we, meaning Sephardim, are underrepresented. On the one hand, Sephardim didn't assert themselves. On the other hand, people didn't invite us in. Sephardic culture often becomes all about music and food. We can cook and sing, but we also have brains and intelligence. We're not just a folk people, but we're a thinking people." So I can put in a link to some of our other. I'll put this in the chat. Some of the other responses from Sephardic leaders about our underrepresentation, both in Jewish organizations and in Jewish schools as well. But I think that gives us kind of an overview of some of the concerns that were raised. Like a lot of people said, we're Sephardic and Mizrahi culture is frequently tokenized, or at best, it's only minimally included through one-off programs such as Mizrahi Heritage Day. So this is kind of one of the reasons, like while as we're putting together the toolkit, it was necessary not only to include like information about Sephardic culture and music, but also our contributions to the STEM fields, to halacha, to literature, and hopefully that will be helpful for a lot for a lot of our Jewish educators in K through 12 schools today. So in the last couple of years, we formed a wide network of educators to help us guide us through the Sephardi and Mizrahi education toolkit. And we are definitely in appreciation and for the generous support of the Covenant Foundation that allowed us to hire a team to produce the website. And in the last, I don't know, 2 weeks, we recently started to share it with Jewish day schools throughout the U.S. and beyond. Yesterday, we were privileged to have a session with our editor, Dr. Ilana Reebok-Ryand, where she provided a comprehensive guide for school leaders to assess their own inclusivity efforts and provided an overview of our recommendations for guidance staff, families, lay leaders, and programming staff in Jewish schools. As Sarah mentioned, the toolkit was built off the success of Jimena's initial work for K through 12 educators and the development of our Journey to the Mizrach curriculum guide. which provided 12 lessons to learn more about Jewish communities in the Middle East and North Africa, and focused on topics ranging from Jewish clothing, family heirlooms, hamsas, henna ceremonies, Mizrahi surnames, storytelling. It also included oral histories, Middle Eastern cuisine, and the plight of the 850,000 Jewish refugees who fled from Muslim countries during the 20th century. So our new Sephardi and Mizrahi education toolkit has expanded upon those topics, and we now have pages devoted to studies on the Sephardic contributions to Israel, to the land of Israel, to the state of Israel, the impact of the Holocaust, arts and music, literature, Tanakh, a page devoted to halachot, tefillah, and minhagim. And the website also features resources on Jewish history, Sephardi and Mizrahi works from medieval to modern literature, contributions to the STEM fields, as well as general resources for many of our own like, let's say, social media accounts, and the ways that you can reach us on YouTube and our partner organizations. I guess I should probably stop here and see if there's any questions before I move on too far. All right.
Ty, do you want to
I'm gonna share with us the website in a second here. What were you gonna ask? Sorry.
I was gonna say, I don't know, like if you're gonna, are you gonna go section by section? Are you gonna
Yeah, I'm,
make,
I'm hoping to. I put it in the chat, the link to the Sephardic toolkit. Um, but I kind of want to just give a little bit of a background information of how we got to this point, and encourage everybody to make sure that we that this is open for everybody to participate in. I can start by doing a screen share here. Give me 1 second. Okay, everybody can see this, okay?
Yes, looks great.
The Sephardi and Mizrahi Education Toolkit, a compendium of recommendations, strategies, resources to help educators learn about Sephardim and Mizrahi heritage and shape inclusive school environments. In a minute, I'll get to the nuts and bolts, as Sarah said. For our recommendations of classroom teachers, you can see the drop down menu here. So maybe somebody's more interested in the arts and history, or the arts section, the history section, or literature sections, but you can access all of these from here. One of the challenges, and also the main goals when we were trying to create this resource, was to be both culturally and geographically diverse, meaning that the website would include information about Sephardim that descended from Ladino-speaking countries, from Spain, Turkey, and Greece, and other communities in the Balkans, and at the same time to highlight Jewish families that lived in Arabic-speaking countries such as Yemen, Morocco, and Iraq, as well as our Persian community in Iran, who spoke a variety of Farsi dialects. Um, I really hope that everybody will find the toolkit to be easily accessible. Um, like we included audio and visual resources, archival materials, primary sources, and access to newspapers, journals, and more. And I was especially careful to make sure that all of the sites that we link to don't have a paywall, so that everything's free, and that it would be useful for for both, like, all kinds of denominations of Jewish Americans in the United States, whether the religious schools or community schools. Um, and again, like, we're looking for your input. We're really hoping to build upon our initial efforts and encourage all of your feedback and suggestions to add additional resources for our students. Um, I don't know how much of this I should get into as background information. Just like, overall, like, my understanding of Jewish education is slightly limited in the fact that, like, I didn't go to a Jewish day school, K through 12. A lot of this I'm learning either as a teacher in Jewish high schools or through teaching middle school, but primarily from my own kids' homework assignments that they're bringing home. I have four children that attended Jewish day school here in Seattle, and I learn a lot from the resources that they're bringing home, and hope that the toolkit will be able to add to many of our schools' curriculum. Our first page here, I'll cut to the chase. Everybody can see I'm on classroom teachers. I'm going to go straight to the Tanakh page. Everybody can see it? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. So originally, I just wanted to point out, like, from my understanding of, if I attend a Jewish day school and I learn Tanakh, I am primarily going to learn from uh, the commentaries of Rashi and his grandsons, the Tosfos, and I might learn a little bit of background information about Rashi, and that he lived in France during the Crusades, and he worked in a vineyard, and he had three daughters, and they participated, or they helped write some of his materials. Our goal is to, like, one, ask what other commentaries from Jews in the Middle East we're using when we review Tanakh, and also if we are able to provide some more background information about the lives and bibliographies of the authors of our Meforashim, our commentaries on the Tanakh. So it would be equally useful to understand the life and times of, I don't know, let's say Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra, and what it was like for him to travel all the way from England to Egypt. And as somebody that lived in Egypt and whose son had converted to Islam, like, it's important to know not just the sources and have the materials in front of us, but also to kind of know, like, what the people's lives were like that wrote these commentaries on the Torah. So what we included here was access to Torah commentaries from everything from the 11th century to modern times, ending with Rabbi Ben Amos Zeg, and then to also provide biographical materials about all of the authors. We included translations in Aramaic, in Judeo-Arabic, and in Ladino, as well as dictionaries that hopefully will be useful and accessible to many of our teachers that are discussing the Tanakh and Torah and Chumash with our Jewish students. The second page, which I'll go to now. After Tanakh, we go to Halachot, Minhagim, and Tefillah, and I had a little conversation with Rabbi Akoka here about what we're including or not including in this section. Overall, like, I tried to link to some of the main halachic works among prominent Sephardic Chachamim over the last 200 years. And then I was proud to include, like, a section devoted to holidays. You'll see everything from Rosh
It's the
Hashanah.
holidays, right? I heard holidays.
Holidays.
The holiday section, I imagine, is going to be our most visited portion of the website, and that will be useful from K through 12. I'm proud that a lot of these links actually work. These resources link to articles that I've written on Sephardic customs for the holidays. And then we have a long list of resources for tefillah, for prayers, all the way from the 10th century in Fallujah in Iraq to more modern Sidurim I think the last one we had was published last year by Sephardic University's Daily Sidur, and I think we included most of our communities. You can see here we have Amsterdam, Iraq, Salonika, Yemen, and a lot of other communities. Nusach and Minhagim for Tefillah are represented within this page.
Seems like the Moroccans are not included in that. There's actually a Sidur with English that was published a few years ago with the Moroccan Nusach that I could definitely, Ty, I'll share with you.
Thanks. It'll be added by tomorrow.
Okay, I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the second page. The third page was a little more difficult, I'd have to say. Speaking about the Sephardic, oops, let me move this over. Can everybody see it okay? About Sephardic contributions to both building to contributions of Sephardim to the land of Israel, as well as contributions to the modern state of Israel. So a few of the highlights here. You'll see that we put a strong emphasis on the migration patterns of Sephardic Jews who left Spain and came to the land of Israel. We also had a whole section devoted to Sephardic Jews' role in the government of Israel, as well as in Israel's military. The part that I probably enjoyed creating most was seeing the entire spectrum of Sephardic and Mizrahi journalism on behalf of Sephardic Zionist or on behalf of Zionist efforts. So you'll see here that we have Zionist news links to Zionist newspapers in Ladino and Judeo-Arabic and French, all of which I imagine would be interesting for students in our Jewish schools these days. Let me see if I have can everybody see some of those? So right there we have links to La Epoca, which is produced in Salonika. We have Kadima in Israel. Some of these other ones I probably won't pronounce, but we have a lot of Jewish newspapers dedicated to support for the creation of the establishment of the state of Israel and encouraging Jews to immigrate to the land of Israel. Anything else about that? No, that's probably it. Any questions? If not, I'll move on to our Jewish history page, which is actually our longest page. Let me put that here. So for this, like I started basically with the rise of Islam and put some links that would be helpful for our students to understand like what it meant to be a dhimmi in the Islamic world, how the Pact of Umar impacted or restricted the status of Jews in Jewish countries everywhere from, let's say, Libya to Afghanistan. And then I skipped ahead a bit here and talked about some of the main Chachamim that had an impact on Jewish communities, both in the Middle East and North Africa and in Spain. So the examples being Rabbi Saadia Gaon, again, born in Egypt, became the Gaon in Iraq, and whose students ended up in Spain. Rabbi Yitzhak Al-Fasi, the Rif, again, connections to all three of the main centers of Sephardic life in the Middle East, North Africa, and in Spain, and of course the Rambam. As we move through it, I tried to highlight some of the most, I don't know, significant events throughout Muslim and communities. So I put an emphasis a little bit on the leadership, not only in that transferred from Spain, that went to Spain, but also like the rise of the Sephardic community in Al-Andalusia, and then the disputations that occurred in Catholic Spain, the Spanish Inquisition, the expulsions, all leading to the emergence of Sephardic diaspora communities in Ottoman lands, in the Americas, North Africa, Syria, and of course Israel. So there's a long section devoted to the rise of Sephardic communities everywhere from Jerusalem and Tiberia, Hebron, Gaza. And then we move on to the last 2 centuries. Any questions at this point, how we might be able to incorporate this? If anybody has any input on like whether or not their schools are actually incorporating Jewish history in their classes, or if it's just mostly world history, I'd love to get your feedback.
How are you marketing it, like to the schools? What are you doing in order for the schools to buy into this?
At this point, we're just basically giving them a tour and introducing this to them. We hope to have an upcoming Sephardic fellowship for Jewish educators to try to integrate this into their own school curricula. You and I have had conversations online of who we might best reach out to and who would be more receptive to including Sephardic studies into into their curricula. So it's been a little bit of a debate. Like, I will be curious. Like, will we have more support from Jewish community schools or religious schools? Who's more apt to include this kind of content in the materials that they're teaching to their students?
Can I add on, Ty? Do you mind?
Please jump in.
Sure. So I think so Ty's been like so in the weeds with developing this, and Jumena has relationships with all different types of institutions throughout the United States. So we're hoping to utilize the networks of Jewish educational organizations like Prisma and like Jewish Learning Works, which was formerly the Bureau of Jewish Education. So we are kind of, from my perspective, working on a top-down distribution plan. And then we're also, this is by no means going to get us into every school, but we're currently conducting research and communal assessments of Sephardi Mizrahi students at the majority of Jewish day schools in Los Angeles and a small select handful in New York. So we're building relationships with some important schools that are predominantly Ashkenazi. And then our hope is also to be able to present this at Jewish educational conferences in the coming year. And really the target for this is the schools that don't have anything, that need help, they don't have Sephardi staff, they don't feel comfortable teaching these subjects. And so to access those schools, we need to work with some of the mainstream educational institutions.
Just to kind of add on that, like one of the questions that was brought up in yesterday's session was about including it in public schools, and that at some point, like schools are inclined to add a component for American Jewish history. So we have a section dedicated to the rise of in our history section, like the rise of Sephardic communities in New York, Rhode Island, and Philadelphia. But I'm hoping also like the more 20th century communities such as in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Seattle could also be incorporated into the curricula where people are talking about American Jewish experiences. I think we also talked about like this is getting to the next section of our history page really, but like it seems like everybody is most interested in Israel education, holidays, and anti-Semitism. So if anything, I feel like the toolkit's going to do a great service for our Jewish educators in terms of understanding anti-Semitism in the Middle East, North Africa. So as we go through the, let me see if I have this up here. Let me skip down a little bit as we go through more of our Jewish history. You'll see resources for understanding the impact of anti-Semitism over the last, I don't know, 2 centuries in the Middle East and North Africa, and maybe come to students will kind of appreciate that a lot of this didn't start in 1967. So we have resources based on the anti-Jewish riots that occurred in Iran in 1910, Yemen in 1918, in Algeria in 1934, throughout Turkey and also in 1934. Some historical resources to educate students about the 1938 massacre in Tveria in Israel. We've focused quite a bit on like both in our distinctions journal, but throughout Jimenez's history of like conducting oral reports like about the Farhud in Iraq that occurred during Shavuot in 1941, which was again inspired by pro-Nazi Iraqis. The 1945 Tripoli riots in Libya, and also try to highlight a little bit of resilience efforts on the part of Libyan Jews during 1948, where they defended their own families by many means, let's say. The next page, so you everybody on their own time will be able to flip through that and see what would be best fit their own school curriculum. The next page is our Holocaust education portion. Oops. Come on. Which again, I think will be useful. We've already had a couple of meetings with organizations that are interested in expanding their understanding of the impact of the Holocaust in North Africa and among Sephardic communities. So I didn't get into all this before, but you'll see like this first picture here where my cursor is, like that's my own Bendiche Yisrael family that was murdered, taken from the island of Rhodes in 1940 in July 1944 and taken to Auschwitz. You see people from the, I guess I think it's pronounced Jado or Jado concentration camps or work
Giotto.
Giado, thank you, in North Africa. But the list of our resources here are kind of not exhaustive, but should be sufficient for most of our educators. So we have it broken up into the impact of the Holocaust in everywhere from Salonika, Rhodes, the Balkans. We have oral histories. We have lists of the names of all of the people that perished during the Shoah, and then an overview of like, well, how did Nazi influences get into the Middle East? So we have, information about the translations of Hitler's Mein Kampf into Arabic in Baghdad and in Lebanon and Egypt, and then resources from Yad Vashem, United States Holocaust Memorial, National Library of Israel, plenty of stuff from everybody to pull from when expanding their understanding of the Holocaust. I'd also like to point out here that we tried to balance this out and point out some of the exceptional examples of Muslims who made significant efforts to save Jewish people, both in Iran, in Turkey, and in Morocco during the Shoah. So please take a look at our Holocaust page. The next one is on arts and music. As we're running out of time here, I'll just kind of point out that like we have everything from ketubot, silversmithing, a lot of resources on Haggadot, music, Pizmonim, Zemirot, and then I broke it into two different sections for musicians based on whether it's the Ladino Sephardic musical tradition or the Judeo-Arabic tradition. We have everybody from Habiba Mesika from the 1930s to Sarah Oestes, who I think may be still here today, and all the work that they've contributed. Before I move on to our next few pages, are there any more questions?
Maybe a suggestion will be, I'm not sure if you have any section about Sephardic philosophy. I think that's something that is needed as well. I will show you a short anecdote that my daughter, who's in high school, we went, I think, a couple of years ago to parent-teacher conferences, and then we were going through the curriculum, and they have Hasidut even. And I did raise a question. I said, what about anything about Sephardic philosophy? There's a void. I think there's definitely what Sephardic rabbis and philosophers have contributed, and maybe something that should be added on eventually, if it's not there yet.
I totally agree. The only time that you might find that is if you go through our Jewish history course, you'll see an article from Hacham Faur about the role and the challenges and the bans on Jewish philosophy. I tried to incorporate that. Always love to add more to that topic. And again, like as expansive as I can be, is including the commentaries of Eliyahu ben Amozeg, which like includes both like well, let's say a far wide-reaching understanding of text. So yes, thank you. Our literature page, again, we put a lot of effort into Sephardic poems and the poetry and poets here, as well as the journalists, both Ladino journalists, Judeo-Arabic journalists, whether it's in Egypt or in Greece. The part that I think I learned the most from, I don't want to skip anything. Well, no, I'm not. I'm on track here, is STEM. So my own grades in science, I won't talk about my grades in science and my science courses in high school, but I did learn a lot from collecting all of our contributions from Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews. I start off a little bit with our medieval period, where Abraham ibn Ezra, the Ralbag, Abraham Zucato, all of these, all of our Hachamim have craters and moon craters named after them because of their contributions to astronomy. So you'll be able to view some of those. Our Nobel Prize winning Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews from Italy, Venezuela, and Morocco and France. Some of their discoveries I understand a little bit. Like I'm gonna one day understand the discovery of nerve growth factor. What is a photon? What does it mean to trap atoms? And lots more that I imagine our STEM teachers will be able to add to our curriculum. After that, we wrapped up a little bit here with our partner organizations, ways to connect with Jemena. Let me get to that. So this is our final resources page. I'll point out here that this is my Papu's Sephardic Talmud Torah class. if everybody can see here, this is my Papu in his knickers and bow tie in the corner on the right-hand side. So our resources include everything that Jimena has done over the last 20 years, our Sephardic Leadership Institute, our current Journal of Distinctions, and ways that you can connect with us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, which is probably our most active and popular platform, and the organizations that we've been working with and really that I've relied on to provide content for our educators across the US. We had the privilege of we yesterday that Sarah Ben Or joined us from the Jewish Language Project, and a lot of the other educators from Rabbi Buskila, the Sephardic Education Center, our Sephardic Heritage Museum have been really key to forming the ways that we were going to present this for Jewish educators across the country. So I hope it's going to be accessible, that anybody's willing to provide feedback. Let us know how useful it is for incorporating Sephardic and Mizrahi studies into your own classrooms. And we are really just grateful for everybody that helped us put this together, and hope that Jewish educators will really like expand upon what they're incorporating into their own schools, and include those of us from the Middle East, North Africa, Islamic world. And thanks again for joining us here today. Sarah, you have anything if anybody has any questions or ways that we can help or you can help, please let us know. Alex. Oops, I'm putting you. There you
go. Thank you very much. It's obviously an impressive collection of educational material. I'm coming in from London in England, and my question is a bit what Rabbi Akoka raised, is how do you market this? How do you get it into the curriculum? Is there a sort of education board who defines the curriculum and you go to them and then it becomes, more or less compulsory? Because the problem we have in England is that the entirely Jewish education curriculum is entirely Ashkenazi. It's all shtetl, the Holocaust, etc., etc. And when you come and talk about including Mizrahi content, they'll say to you, "Oh, the curriculum is already too full. We haven't got time," etc., etc.
I would be curious to hear from some of the educators, because I see we have like Vicky Tsor, who has successfully integrated other parts of Jimena's educational materials. If you want to answer that, I will just say quickly, I think a lot of this is relationship building, and it's working with those mainstream organizations in terms of standards. I don't think that there are standards. I do think that the Jewish higher ed institutions need to do some improvements. Vicky, do you want to add anything?
I mean, I think you're right. It is relationship building. I don't. It's a hard slog. It is relationship building to get it in. But what I did want to say, I mean, it's a very impressive collection of resources. But what I did want to say is where I am now, coming from education in a synagogue. What I would want to see more of, to have a much bigger bank of the chagim, because this is what we're doing here. We're not gonna, with the like a K-8, we're not gonna get into a lot of the other stuff. But I want to make sure that my students know that there isn't just one way to celebrate, the chagim, because this is what we do. We do the life cycle.
So I'll just add to that. Like, I'm already convinced that we should separate our Hagim from our halachot and minhag page. So I agree. We could expand it upon it a lot. I'm sure everybody could share with us a couple of resources that would make it into a full page. And like I said from the beginning, like I think between the Israel page, the Holocaust page, and Minhagim, like that's where most of our educators are going to be focused on.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's a work in progress. I understand that, but you know, it's a great start.
Well, listen, Vicky, I wanted to add in a whole resource where they had Mimuna on Shalom Sesame, the Israeli version of Sesame.
Yeah.
Like, and I have it as like it's ready to go. We'll put the link in there, but it just kind of didn't fit in yet. Like we have
It's a really
product
old, it's a
education
really old
channels.
one, but it's still cute. I use
So
it.
cute, right? And like
Yeah.
at the same time, it was like, well, overall though, like you can access to that from the Sephardic Education Center's overall guide to Mimuna, and it's embedded within that. I don't know. My own
So we could do that. I mean,
the criticism of
that's
the
the thing about this
criticism of my
document
own
is it's
work is like,
fluid. And I would also add another thing, another point, which is that there's no central organization or there's no central space that is organizing all of the amazing educators and resources that exist. And where our hope is, my hope has always been that this can kind of serve as that space where anyone who wants to add their lesson plan or their materials or resources that they know about or videos can do that. So yeah, my hope is this will be a fluid document that we will always be improving on.
absolutely. And back to Alex's question, like I put in the chat the link of our advisory board, which like really consists of 22, most of whom are either heads of schools or rabbis, whatever, in major positions of Jewish education. Been reaching out to and hopefully are sharing our materials and resources within their networks. We're always looking to grow, and anybody that has anything that they're willing to contribute or ways that we can spread the word about Sephardic and Mizrahi education, let us know. Well, I'll put my email address in the chat. Happy to speak with anybody offline, and welcome
Yeah, and
everybody.
Alec, I'm happy to speak with you. And I know we are.
Well, we got a call next Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk more about your question because I understand that need and that challenge. I was there and I've been there and we're still there for since before I was even born. So I think that like there's some strategies that are worth exploring that have helped us at least get to where we're at,
Oh,
which is not implementation in every single school, but that is, our goal.
thanks. Anyway, we're talking next week. Yeah.
Okay, there's my
Okay.
email. I highly recommend everybody sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on Twitter, X, Facebook, Meta, Instagram. Subscribe to Jimenez journal distinctions, and we do plan to make sure that we update the curriculum, our curriculum guide, our Sephardic and Mizrahi education toolkit, and welcome everybody's participation. Thanks to Sarah, Sapir, all of you for joining us, and hopefully we will all connect offline as well.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ty.
Bye. Bye-bye.